In Year 5 and 6, the children learn to add pairs of numbers with ones and tenths. So there are some different strategies that they could use to do this. First one I'm going to show you is using a number line. So here in this addition equation we have 7.5 add 3.2. So we could partition the 3.2 into 3 or 3.0 and into 0.2, which is showing those tenths. So on our number line we would start with the biggest part that we're adding, which is 7.5. Just as we do throughout school, we would start with the biggest part. First of all, we would add the ones. So I'm adding 3, and that leads me to 10.5. And all I need to think about is that ones column, because that's all I'm adding. Then I'm going to add the tenths. So I'm going to be adding 0.2. And so now I need to think about the tenths. So 0.5 tenths and 0.2 tenths would be 0.7 tenths. And that would get me the answer of 10.7. So 7.5 add 3.2 is equal to 10.7. To move on from the previous step of adding pairs of numbers, ones and tenths, we're now doing a more complex one, which mirrors the strategies that the children have learned in Year 2 and in Year 3, and moving on to Year 4, where they embed that even more with bigger numbers. So we have 7.5 plus 3.7 this time. And what we would do is we would partition the 3.7. So we would, as we did before, we'd add the ones. So we have the ones there, but then we would partition the tenths even further. So we wouldn't just write 0.7, we would partition the tenths into 2 parts. And the reason that we do this is so that we can add the tenths to make the nearest unit and then add the rest. So I'll show you. Oh, so we've got 0.5 partitioned it into, and then we're also partitioning it into 0.2. So that's using the number facts that children would have learned from Year 2. So we would start on the biggest part, as we do always when we're doing these kinds of strategies on a number line. We would add the ones first, so we're adding 3. That would make 10.5. And now this is where we're going to be adding part of the tenths to make the nearest unit. So we would use our number bonds knowledge. So we'd use the 0.5 to add on to make the nearest unit, which would be 11. And then we would add on the rest of the tenths, which would be 0.2, which would then give us the answer of 11.2. The reason we do that is because it's easier to add tenths into a unit. As you can see, there are no tenths present there. That 0 is a placeholder, so we can add it on. So it just makes it easier to break down. But it's really important that the children understand that when they're partitioning these tenths, they need to be thinking about the first part. So we need to definitely have a part that has 5 and tenths have 0.5 so that we can add it to this 5 to make the nearest unit, and then we add on the rest. And that would give us the answer, as I said, of 11.2. So 7.5 plus 3.7 is equal to 11.2. Another way of doing this is to partition both numbers. So we'd partition 7.5 into 7, and then 0.5, and then we would partition 3.2, just as we did previously, to 3 ones, and then the 0.2 to show the tenths. So first of all, what I would do is I would add the ones. So that's 7 plus 3 is equal to 10. Then I would add the tenths. So that's 0.5 plus 0.2 is equal to 0.7. Then I would combine them back together. So we have 10 plus 0.7 is equal to 10.7. We could also use the strategy of partitioning, then adding the ones, adding the tenths, and then combining it back together. This is slightly more complex, I wanted to show you. So 7.5 would be partitioned into 7, and then 0.5, and then the 3.7 would be partitioned into 3, and then the 0.7. So we would add, as before, the 1, 7 plus 3 equals 10, nice and easy using the number facts. Then we would add the tenths, so 0.5 plus 0.7. Now what's different from the previous example I gave is that when we're adding the tenths, you can see that we're also going to be making a 1. So 0.5 plus 0.7 is 1.2, because 5 plus 7 would be 12, so we can use that knowledge to help us. So we would make 1.2. So because we are making 1.2, what would we first do again is that we would add, it's almost like we're partitioning again. So we've got the 1, and then we've got the 0.2. So first we'd add the ones again, so it's like we're repeating the same strategy. So we have 10 plus 1 equals 11. And then we would add to that 11 the tenths to combine them finally. So then 11 plus 0.2 is equal to 11.2, and that would get us the answer. So 7.5 plus 3.7 equals 11.2.